the community infrastructure level funding as the county councillor for Kimbolton.
Thank you, Chair. I have an interest in Part 4.6 with respect to the Cromwell Museum, and also 4.7 with respect to King George V Pavilion development, by virtue of the fact that I'm a member of Huntingdon Town Council and have discussed this with them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, I know I'm not a member directly here, but I also need to declare an interest because I'm a member of Huntingdon Town Council, so probably can't answer questions on their SIL application. Thank you.
That'll be interesting. Okay, no further. Councillor Blackwell.
Yes, I too am a member of Huntingdon Town Council.
Thank you. Obviously, item 3, overview and scrutiny work programme. Councillor Jennings.
Thank you, Chair. At the last meeting, the work programme had the transformation approach and plan scheduled for this meeting to look at in pre-scrutiny. That's now slipped to the next meeting and gone to scrutiny review. Is there a reason why it's moved from one kind of scrutiny to another? And then I have a second question also.
Apologies, that had actually been doubled up. Unfortunately, I don't have the exact answer for that, so I can go away and look into that for you. But I was advised that it was actually a duplicate and it shouldn't have actually been down as that. It was just for scrutiny only. Apologies for that.
Another question.
And I guess my second question is, there haven't been any updates on any of the unscheduled agenda points. And I feel like we sort of go from feast to famine on the agenda of this panel. Last time we had one that went on for a considerable amount of time. And then this time we're sitting here with just really one substantive agenda item. It would be lovely to think that some of these unscheduled items might make it onto perhaps one of these meetings that has a less heavy agenda.
I actually agree completely and had that conversation. So yes, feast or famine certainly is the word. And we are in conversation trying to even out and actually make sure that we have enough time for discussion while not overloading the agendas on that one. So I agree with you. Councillor Martin.
Thank you very much, Chair. Slightly surprised to see on the unscheduled items the decision to implement 25-26 parking fees. Again, this is something that I've been going on about for some time now. The budget that was set by the Joint Administration included a price increase or a fee increase as soon as CPE came in. That price increase hasn't happened and it hasn't come back through the democratic cycle. So at the moment, the council is going against its own budget, going the way forward that it is. Now, I know we have the deputy leader sat to the end of the table. I'm sure he'll be able to enlighten us on why we haven't moved forward with the agreed budget of the Joint Administration, and because it hasn't happened, why it hasn't been brought back through the system for us to vote on it democratically as we should with all fees and charges.
Chair, it will be going to full council, I understand.
It's
I'm sorry, Chair, but the decision, CPE came in over a month ago. The budget was that the fees would go up as soon as CPE came in. So it should have gone up unless a decision was made before that to change the fees and charges. So this period of time between now and when you do decide to take it to full council, we're doing it against your own budget, which you set back in February this year.
So I can only infer from that you're in favour of putting up fees and charges for car parks then. But it is going to full council. That's the democratic process as I understand it. If you, well, I would suggest then that you debate it at full council. That would be the appropriate forum to do so.
Would you like to comment?
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, this is largely a matter for the political points. Obviously, we've got an agreed budget framework and set of principles as established by our constitution. I suggest, Chair, it may be a conversation that Councillor Martin wants to pick up directly with the portfolio holder for finance as the relevant individual. The reference on there on the long-standing work programme is, in essence, given the conversations that were had in the process of full council and commitments that were made regarding the linkage with the car parking strategy, that essentially is on the long list to enable it to come through the political cycle, whether that is to implement, change or not implement. But I believe beyond that, it's political points that I suggest are picked up directly with the portfolio holder.
Just the final point to make, Chair, is that this is for the implementation of this financial year's, and we haven't got much this financial year left to run.
I think points taken. I think the issue will have to be taken up with Councillor Mickleborough in terms of that issue, and I'm sure we will take that away, Councillor Martin, and make sure that's addressed. Thank you. Councillor Gardner.
Thank you very much, Chair. It's with regard to the local development order for Brampton Cross. As the local member for Alconbury, which covers the vast majority of the Brampton Cross site, I am surprised that not one of the leaders of the joint administration had the courtesy to inform me of this possible proposal for a local development order for the proposed Brampton Cross development. This, in my mind, highlights yet again this administration of Lib Dem, Independent, Labour and Green councillors' total disregard for our rural communities, which I will remain. But whilst I remain the local member, I will continue to defend for the interests of my residents, as you would expect me to do so. My concern with an LDO, if this is what happens, it will only give local communities one opportunity to comment, and that the final decision will be made by Cabinet and not DMC. At Cabinet, input from parishes, residents is not permitted in the same way as it is at DMC. Therefore, it leads me to believe that this administration is not interested in hearing from local residents, and they are being totally sidelined, and I do not think that is the way this authority should behave on any development whatsoever. So I would like to know why I have not been informed by leaders of this administration. Thank you, Chair.
Is that a question for me, I assume?
I was just going to say...
it is a question.
Oh, right, okay.
I'm
Tom is the only leader in this room. So
I'm afraid I don't know the answer, Councillor Gardner, but I will find out for you.
thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Councillor Chapman.
Oh, it's that one, isn't it? I've forgotten. I have no declarations of interest, by the way. I find it very interesting that there's this discussion about car parking charges and an assumption that in order to increase the car parking revenue, the only way of doing it is putting up car park charges. And this is something a route that's been pursued as I believe, quite a lazy option in the past of just putting up charges again and again. And I'm very pleased that the joint administration is giving fuller consideration to whether or not they do this, whether or not changing the charging structure might help, or some of the schemes that we run, and possibly even other ways of increasing car park usage, which hasn't been increased with CPE. So those cars that were parking, that we're stopping parking through CPE, haven't gone into those car parks, and there are spaces in those car parks, and so there's an opportunity to get greater utilisation of those car parks. And I think that it is very important that the joint administration do look at other possibilities besides just whacking up charges on residents which damage the high street. And I'm very pleased at hearing Councillor Sanderson's response to the earlier question.
Councillor Sanderson, would you like to respond?
I'm sure we'll have a thorough and interesting debate at full council, Chair.
I think I would just add that it is actually on the record that we're actually doing a review on car parking anyway, and that was part of the agreement. So hopefully that will be starting fairly soon and we can move forward with that. Are there any other questions? No? Okay. If we can then move on to outstanding responses from previous meetings. Thank you.
You have before you the responses to the outstanding questions. Does anybody have any further thing to add?
No? Okay. We'll move on to item 5, community infrastructure levy funding.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. You have in front of us the latest results of the seal bidding round, which was very extremely well prepared by the team. I've got Ro Lyons with me from the implementation and planning policy team. You'll see that there's a number of recommendations here on page 30. Some good news, I suppose, depending on your point of view, but some good news for most of the applicants here. There was one project that, was declined. You also note that a project in Kimbolton where we agreed a lesser amount of funding, that's 4 playgrounds at Kimbolton and Stoneleigh. Pleased to say that the emphasis now on seal is more to look at what is possible. I know at times some applicants have been frustrated where they felt that they needed perhaps some more guidance earlier on. I think the team have responded superbly to that. The process has changed quite a bit. We're looking more at sort of pre-app advice, if you like, sort of dealing with issues a lot earlier on. The inquiry forms have changed, and that I think has worked extremely well. So happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll open the floor to Councillor Tevlin.
Sorry, it's not a question. I've just realised I should have declared an interest. I'm on the Finstanton New Village Hall Trust. I'm a trustee for that.
Thank
you.
Please
add that.
Take a note of that. Are there any questions on the Councillor Martin?
Thank you very much, Chair. It's good to see that there's finally been some movement on some of the applications that have been put forward. But I do question that obviously some of these came forward in the last round and fell very far short of the bar that was set. So I wonder, has the bar been changed, that we're now accepting that we're going to give out more money, which I'm not saying I'm against. I'm saying, but has that happened? Because in the report it says that, for example, the Kimbolton and Stoneleigh Parish Council submission, that it says the last time it wasn't good enough, this time it came in and it met the criteria, but the points that it scored is significantly more than last time. So I'm wondering, have we changed the governance structure again, even though we've only recently changed it, to lower the standards for giving out money? So I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I just want to know if that's what's happened in this case.
What we've tended to find is that if there's a refusal in one round, they do take on board the feedback, and we do give very good feedback, and we work closely with them to work through their applications and where the downfalls were. So with Kimbolton and with Berry Gardram in the last one, they've worked from that feedback, and it's the information within submission and how they've and anything like match funding that they might have looked at as well. That's what the difference is. It's not a difference in how it's scored, it's the difference in how it's been presented to us and what information we've been provided with.
So, sorry, Chair, so just to confirm, the bar hasn't been lowered. The bar is at the same level as it was this time 3 months ago, and it's just the submissions have improved because of the work they've done with you and the team.
Yes.
Also on the Kimbolton application, you'll notice that they're getting quite a bit of growth, housing growth, and they'll be getting some 106 money for that, and that will be in part payment for the improvements that they've asked for.
I mean, it's good to know, it's reassuring that obviously the applications have improved, so we actually can get some money through the door, which is excellent news. Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Chair. I found the button this time. When I look at the amount of money that St Neots Town Council has received in SIL, it's a substantial sum. It's about 7 million, I believe, or thereabouts. But that is 25% of the total receipts of SIL from there. So that equates to 35,000 being held by HDC. Sorry, 35 million, my apologies. But 35 million. And yet I can't see any evidence at all of that sort of money being provided into the town to alleviate the strains that are being put on that area by growth through lack of infrastructure. And I'm looking at this scheme thinking, well, how do you get these bigger projects through? Also, when the redevelopment of the Priory Centre has gone over the originally estimated budget, and the Town Council is now being asked to contribute 2.5 million of its SIL receipts to that. Why is that, and why isn't it coming out of the, says 35 million in the pot as available, but I believe we've got over 50 million of SIL. And I just think that it would make sense where we've got infrastructure projects that are on the go to spend money on those rather than ask parish councils that will still be in existence after LGR to contribute their SIL. It seems a little bit of a silly thing to do when that SIL will then go outside of the area after LGR. So how do we make sure that we get the infrastructure that we need, apart from putting through small projects? And I note that there are none on there from St Neots this time, and I don't know whether or not they've given up or what's happening there. But
I'm afraid to say my former school, Longsands, withdrew their application. My former alma mater, I hope they're watching, they withdrew their application for funding for their IT suite, I understand.
Yep, so there were a couple of bits there. I think you questioned the amount of SIL that we've received from developments in St Neots. So we don't ring fence SIL funding from where the developments came in. And I think when we looked at governance, that was one of the options we discussed, and that didn't get through governance. So any SIL funds that we receive within the strategic part are for the whole district. And the whole district may benefit from that as well, with funding for things like Alconbury Send School, which will have more people than just within Alconbury, and within Hinchinbrook Country Park, Hinchinbrook Hospital. So we don't ring fence it for the area that the funding came into. As for funding for St Neots, St Neots has had 6 allocations, which is the highest out of any other area, town or parish within the district at this point. So when they have applied, and they didn't apply this round, so they have been successful with funding in the past with, I think there was cycle parking in the Market Square, there was future high street funds.
Cycle parking was paid for by the Town Council.
There was still funding for it as well. There was Riverside Park. So there were 6 allocations for St Neots, but we would need to see the applications in to be able to allocate the funding for them. And that's the ones that we have had in have all been considered and have been more successful this round because of the work they've put into them. But we have got the still funding inquiry forms as well at the moment. So if St Neots did have a query about what may be eligible for funding, I would encourage them to use the inquiry form.
If I may, so is the 5 million or whatever it is at today's prices for upgrading the Eton Soken grid an allocation within this? This was one of the original projects which went into the application to government in order to have SIL, because the grid needed upgrading in order to support the housing in the area. So can you tell me what's happened to that project, please?
Ro, can I just stop? I think Mike would like to come in at this point. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to come in. So on the latter point, the Eaton-Soken point, I think we can take that away and give you a written answer to that. Because I think it'd be unfair to put Ro on the spot about kind of wider awards of money that go back to when the scheme was originally undertaken. So to make sure you get the right information, we'll take that away. I also just wanted to add in on your latter point, Councillor Chapman, about SIL and what will happen LGR wise, and without sounding like a broken record and repeating the same answer that I've said a number of times now in this forum and council and others. That is one of the unknowns, but it doesn't automatically follow that we need to get rid of SIL now and, effectively have a fire sale of SIL and get it off the books. That would be irresponsible from an officer perspective to encourage you to do that, and equally from a member's perspective. And I'm sure our 151 officer would be stepping in if that were the case. What we don't know at this moment in time is what happens longer term, in terms of who we're partnered with, all of that sort of stuff. What the structural order will say, it could be that those funds are ring-fenced to the previous area of Huntingdonshire. We just don't know at this point in time. So we've got an item that is penciled in for future consideration about the strategic approach to SIL. So all we can do as of now, Councillor Chapman, is operate SIL in accordance with our established governance process that was adopted last year.
Yes.
Okay, does that mean, sorry, I'm not sure, I'll address my questions to the portfolio holder, but could there be some sort of explanation as to why the town council has been asked to put in the 2.5 million SIL when it's a district council building and a district council project? I'm not saying now, unless you've got the answer. And could I also have details of the Eaton-Soken grid, because it was said that if we didn't have that, we wouldn't have the power supplies going into the town to support the housing planned at that stage, which was about 5 or 6 years ago. So, or maybe 10 years ago actually now. I'd very much like to know whether that money is allocated somewhere, if it's in the difference between the 35,000 and the 35 million and the 50 million, or if that's been overlooked. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chapman. I think we're getting into quite a lot of.
I think it's probably separate from SIL, but we'll find out the answer. Yeah.
Please, if we could, that would be helpful. Councillor Taylor.
Chair, if I may, can I suggest a way forward with this agenda, because we've got time tonight, and I would like to take each of these applications one by one so we can talk about them, understand their approvals or declines, and do it in a methodical order. So if we start with the first one, which I think is Huntingdon Campus retrofit skills, and each member to have a say on that, I just think that would be more methodical, if panel is okay with that.
I think that's certainly an option. I'm not sure that it's something that would necessarily perhaps add a great deal of value at the moment, but it's happy to take comments on that.
Thank you, Chair. I think this is something that we've discussed on many occasions before when this item has come to us, and the reason we were told before is because this isn't meant to be a detailed report on the exact applications. It's meant to give us an overview, which we then make recommendations to the executive on whether they should agree with officers or not. As much as I would love to sit here and go through each one of them individually, I don't think we can add a tremendous amount of value to the process unless we know about the individual projects and are then able to make recommendations that aren't in this report. I know there's only one that's recommended for refusal, which I kind of agree with. All the others I accept as well, I think are the right decision. So I propose that we don't go through one by one at this point and continue.
I do tend to agree. I mean, obviously, we need to remind ourselves we're overview and scrutiny. We're not officers. We're not going through each and every single application. You know, I certainly think we can take some issues offline if necessary, but I don't think it's good, effective use of our time at the moment to actually scrutinise every single item on the agenda at the moment. I think there's some learning from it, certainly, but I think we can actually take this offline because it's becoming a little too detailed and a lot of members are not involved in these applications anyway. So are there any other, Councillor Blackwell?
Okay, mine are just a couple of points I've picked up. Page 66 of the report, the Guardroom Community Hub in Bury suggests we're transforming it into a multifunctional space. I mean, is it space? There is a space in the report or building. So can that sentence be completed, please, for more clarity? And finally, the end of the report, page 68. I'm assuming that the Ramsey location is the football club, but it'd be useful to have a full address in there, please. Thank you.
Councillor Tevlin.
Thanks, Chair. I'm also looking at Monkswood Police Station training site. They've commented that they're undertaking a rework to establish what delivery may look like. It would be useful from the officer's perspective, what's going on there and why is it being delayed like that? Thank you.
I am going back to them for further information, but at the moment they are, I believe, reviewing the budget and the designs. So I am set to have a meeting with them to fully review it and to see if it needs to come back, how much it has changed. But that is the update for at this point until I have that meeting with them.
Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Chair. It's good to see on Appendix 1 that there are some projects that are now being completed. I know for a few rounds there haven't been much completions coming forward, so it's good to see. The one ask that I would have for that section is, could we have in there when the funding was allocated/agreed so that we can see the timelines in which some of these applications are working within? I think it'll give us a better ability going forward to scrutinise some of the applications if we're having repeat offenders of certain areas that are over-optimistic in their delivery timescales, and just so we can keep an eye on it, because I'm sure everyone else couldn't remember when some of these went through, but I certainly can't.
In the actual table under the project name, I do put when it was approved at Cabinet, but I can make that into a separate column to make it clearer, yeah.
Councillor Jennings.
Thank you, Chair. Mine's a general question. I don't think I could see it in the report. Is there any indication of when the next round of SIL funding is likely to take place?
It is within the report, 27th of October, so very shortly. Then it closes on the 19th of December. So I have emailed out to all town parishes and infrastructure partners to let them know that that date is coming up, and it is on the website.
Thank you. Yes, I've actually reminded St Hyde's Town of that as well. Thank you, Ro. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. With my previous comment, I think yourself and Councillor Martin misunderstood me. What I meant was that we don't go through each item bit by bit and delve into it. We go methodically. Does any member have questions about it bit by bit, about each application? I don't mean to delve into it. Absolutely. The reports now are superb compared to how they used to be with the previous administration. They are absolutely on point. They have got details in them. They've got plans. So, you know, if we've done our homework and we've read the reports, absolutely, we don't need to delve that deeply into it. But what my suggestion was that we do it methodically so people understand which one we're talking about and if we need to raise any points on it. Thank you, Chair.
Again, interesting point. I mean, obviously, there's several on here that several members don't actually have any knowledge of, in terms couldn't engage properly with that. So I'm inclined to stay with the methodology we have, unless there are any other recommendations on how we can improve this. Councillor Catmer.
Thank you very much. I have nothing to do with any of these applications because I come from rural villages, so I know almost nothing about any of them. But when I went through, the one thing that puzzled me is what the scoring mechanism is. And I tried to reverse engineer it, and it does not reverse engineer. And I can't work out how we are scoring things, I'm sorry to say.
We did discuss this briefly at the last ONS. It is an indicative score at the moment. So we did have a meeting with Councillor Martin as well to go through this and taken on board any suggestions anyone would have as well. So it is indicative at the moment. So we do make the decision separate to that and then use that to sense check in. The scoring, I think, is broken down within the report on the fact that the statement of intent gets points per section. And then we can give further detail, but we just haven't fully detailed it at this point. But we are reviewing the scoring for the next round, following feedback from the last ONS session about what is included as well. So it's an ongoing piece of work at the moment, and we will bring it back when it is.
Ro, can you show me who you've involved with the scoring mechanism?
Initially, we just set it up ourselves. So initially, it was something we set up on the back of the review from Inner Circle, and they worked with us on setting up the initial scoring and the indicative scoring. And then I think at the last ONS in March, there was discussion about it and about what does it include and what could be included. So then we just invited anyone to come in contact with us and discuss it, which we have done. But we are more than willing to take any feedback or any thoughts anybody might have on the scoring. It is still interim and it's still just indicative.
I think that's helpful, and I would certainly encourage some more members to actually get involved in actually identification of the scoring mechanism. And if you could let me know if you don't hear anything in a timely manner, I'll perhaps suggest a few names. Thank you for that. And I think it's useful to actually, Councillor Catmer.
Thank you very much, Chair. I mean, very useful to the parishes because, again, we've got no parish applications in at all, and they all want to know how this works. And with some indication, I think they've all welcomed the feedback from the pre-application process that I've heard from them, but they want to kind of understand how it might work because they want to know what to work on.
Thank you, Chair. Just to pick up on this point, so this is something that has evolved out of the governance process that we've gone through. I know the team did a very good job at the Town and Parish Forum in terms of introducing towns and parishes to the inquiry process, and are saying almost we're always at the end of the phone or an email to kind of work through some of these issues. What we've tried to create here is a scoring system that sits alongside, the ability to take into account the qualitative nature of the applications as well. So, the scoring is one part of it, but there is that overall assessment to arrive at where we are. And again, I just wanted to pick up on your point, Chair, that as we've explained previously, this isn't about members stepping into the officer space of doing all of the detailed assessments and the detailed understanding of every individual case. That's our space to replay that back into you for it to then kind of go then on to Cabinet to ultimately make the decisions on these. So what we've tried to do here is provide enough information so you can kind of see the general context and the reason and the rationale that is then being presented to Cabinet.
Thank you, Mike. Councillor Gardner.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, it's just a matter of clarification. With a declaration of interest, I need to declare an interest for St Neots Fire Station because I'm a member of the Fire Authority.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner.
That's all right.
Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. Since we're not being methodical with this, I will just pick out anything. Okay, so I am looking at the Kimbolton and Stoneleigh playgrounds, and I think the way that this has been allocated is good. And okay, they didn't get the full amount, but I think it's still reasonable, and I'm really happy with that because with that growth, as Councillor Sanson said, Kimbolton has got that growth. So the only thing I'm going to ask is, on the 6th of November, the other overview and scrutiny panel have a agenda for the sustainable framework for play in Huntingdonshire. I just need clarity on that and understand what the framework means, because I know at some point the open spaces were bringing through playground needs assessment. So is this the same thing as needs assessment? And if it is the new strategy, the new needs assessment for playgrounds, I just want the officers to bear in mind that when we are allocating SIL funding, that when this does come through on the 6th of November to the other scrutiny panel, that this needs to be taken into account with our SIL applications. So if I could just have clarity on what that framework for play actually means.
Thank you, Chair. So it is essentially that the sustainable play framework is the strategy to look at our play assets across the district. I won't go into detail about it because it's going to the alternative panel, the relevant panel next month. So Councillor Taylor, you're obviously in that advantageous position being the previous portfolio holder for that area. What I will say is that should have no bearing on this consideration this evening, nor indeed Cabinet, because that strategy is not adopted yet. So we have to take the SIL application that is before us on face value. However, from an officer standpoint, I don't see any conflict between this proposal and that strategy, having seen it in draft myself. So, but as I say, we need to not conflate two issues and two different scrutiny processes.
Thank you. I'm not conflating it whatsoever. What I'm asking is, in the future, when that strategy is adopted, the officers, when they are looking at, because in past, many applications for playgrounds, for SIL, have been turned down. So what I'm asking is, when that strategy is adopted, that it is taken into account, because it is an assessment for needs. We're not putting playgrounds and giving SIL money, funding, for areas that don't need it.
Through yourself, Chair. I understand the point that Councillor Taylor's been making. It will be a relevant consideration that Roe and the team can fall back onto, consider as evidence against any submissions that come in. However, at the same time, we have to take the SIL applications on their value, and remember the fundamental drivers for SIL are relating to growth, either to facilitate growth or to mitigate the impact of growth. So there may be many other reasons why in the past play space applications have not been supportable. There may be similar reasons in the future, but yes, it will be a relevant evidence base that Roe and the team can consider.
Are there any other questions? Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, and I appreciate that. Thank you. So I'm going to page 5, 3.3, and it's spend allocation. So it's a potential support. So SIL for potential support to a number of strategic infrastructure projects may be needed in the future. There's two words in that sentence: potential and may. What I don't want to see is that we're sitting on this money, and I agree with it being, that we do need this strategic infrastructure, but I don't want us sitting on this money for a potential or may. I think I need to understand what we're going to use it for. We've spoken about the A141, the A1, the A428. So I need to understand at what point this is going to be used, if ever. So timelines and just understand, because we have no idea on scrutiny.
I think those big projects that Councillor Taylor's highlighted depends on the progress, doesn't it? Depends on when we're asked. We're obviously taking a keen interest in all of them, big strategic projects, transport related. So I think if an application is put forward by National Highways, I assume in the case of transport, we'll have to consider them carefully. You know, they, I think, will unlock growth potentially, as often big strategic transport projects do.
Thank you for that clarification. I have to actually, following on from Councillor Taylor's question, I mean, obviously, it's quite a lot of money that we're actually sitting on in terms of for the strategic spend on this. So I don't think it's really unreasonable to have some indication of timelines, even if it's guesstimate.
We'll find out, make some inquiries. Yeah, I think all members would be interested, potentially.
Again, Chair, if I may, I'll refer to my earlier comment and the item on the work programme that talks about still strategic allocation to come forward. It's a piece of work that the team are working on at this moment in time to kind of hopefully give that direction of travel. It is, however, a challenging one. You know, we were trying to predict what may come forward, but equally we're trying to ensure that the spend is used for the reasons it is there, which is to enable growth and mitigate the impacts of growth. We can't just kind of frivolously give away the money to various projects and then be sat there going, actually, we need that big bit of infrastructure, and now we've got to find another way to pay for it. So that's the challenge that exists, and that is the role of our strategic governance that we have and the reasons why we established that last year. So that paper will come forward and hopefully provide a bit more of a framework around the strategic allocation.
Thank you for that, Mike. It's quite helpful just to see. I think it's obviously the concern, and as you quite rightly say, it's the balancing act between like money in the bank and actually dealing with the day-to-day issues. Councillor Chapman.
Thank you. This is just strategic allocations. How does one go about getting something like the Little Paxton Bridge with St Neots included in that? Because this is something which causes the whole town to grind to a halt several times a year. It's a single carriageway, really, bridge between the 5,000 people that now live in the houses built in Little Paxton and the St Neots population on the other side. It's a major route to the A1, and yet it's this bridge that constantly gets closed. Now, how does that get added into the strategic allocation?
So when we talk about strategic allocation, it is something that generally is led by one of the major bodies. So, for example, Cambridgeshire County Council Highways. And if they felt that there was an absolute need for that infrastructure to be upgraded, they would come and talk to the team and have a conversation and say, actually, there's a project here. You know, it's developed out, it's got all the various transport reports, all those sorts of things. This is how much it's going to cost. This is how much we need kind of still to fill the gap, in effect, from other funds. So that's the kind of, to utilise your example and not get into detail, Councillor Chapman, that's the sort of way that would come through the process. So if that is a particular project of yours, I'd suggest get Cambridgeshire County Council on board in the first instance, and they can come and have a conversation with us as officers about what might be available. But again, if you want to pick up any other issues offline, I'm sure Clara and the team would be happy to help.
Very briefly, thank you.
Okay, the need to upgrade the Little Paxton Bridge was included in the transport report that was commissioned by HDC for the master plan, and it's been said many times about the need, and it's obvious to everyone that it needs to be upgraded. Clearly, County Council aren't going to come forward with a definite, we've got to have this, because it commits them to actually doing something. So is there not some way that there could be a discussion on this strategic need with the County Council without people making that sort of
I think we're getting into level of detail again. on this one? Can we take this offline? Sorry, Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, just for clarification for Councillor Chapman, it was brought to County Council by a Conservative motion, and it about the Little Paxton Bridge upgrade. Excuse me. Consequently, the motion was, I think, changed, and it went to Highways Committee for to speak about. I don't know what the outcome of that is, but it's still. I think it's still been bandied around, and they are still talking about it. But there may be other options to mitigate the flooding, so it's not necessarily a bridge.
Thank you for adding to the level of information. I'm sure that's helpful. Are there any other questions on this item? Well, if not, I'm going to close the meeting, and thank you so much for your time. It's got to be one of the shortest meetings we've ever had. And thank you, and I'll see you next month. Thanks, bye.